I left Ireland in the mid-80s after being at college in Belfast. I did a degree in fine art painting, and then I moved to New York. And before I delve into the world of living in New York, I'd just like to thank Anne, Caroline, Nancy, Aisling, and Elaine for really a most pleasurable experience of working with an all-women crew on this festival, or should I say Inspirefest. And it's really the first time that I've had that experience. I have spoken at various conferences before, and it's been a very pleasurable experience. So thank you so much to them. So before I went to college, between school and college, I had a kind of a wild ride. I played bass guitar in an all-girl punk rock band called the Boy Scouts, and which are sort of slowly coming back into conversation about whatever happened to the Boy Scouts. So anyway, and during that time, I made a long-lasting friendship with the bass player of U2, Adam Clayton. And over a period of, many years now, we have maintained that friendship, and I have worked and collaborated with the band over that time. So in the early 90s, in the mid-80s, I moved to New York, and then in the early 90s, let me just go to this. Yeah, we'll go to this. So in the early 90s, I started collaborating with them on their tours as the creative director of their on-screen live show visual content. And I'm just going to show you, this is a slide of the last tour I worked on with them. I've been on 5 tours with them. And this is sort of the last, what I would call the last incredible, extraordinary sort of breath of this huge beast that grew over time. And this was for the tour 360. I stopped working with them after this tour in the collaborative process to sort of get back to my studio and work on other things. But during this time, what happened was, people have various opinions on U2, their music, the lead singer, their, social, political ventures. But for me, the adventure was really a technical adventure. We worked for a tour called Pop Mart Tour. We worked with a great Belgian team who developed LED technology for the tour Pop Mart. The technology that got developed for that tour was the technology that you now see everywhere, including Times Square, etc. So it was because of what U2 wanted to express and how they wanted to express it that technology was developed. So through that, as a visual artist, I worked with a lot of technicians and found that the collaborative experience was extremely rewarding, pleasing, informative for both sides, because a lot of the technologists were in their world, and a lot of the creative people and artists are in their world. And so to have those two things come together for me was kind of dipping into the lucky bag and picking out all the best things. So the touring part of that, I won't really go into too much of it right now, and I can talk about that to anybody later. But out of that came other projects that we worked on together. One of those projects, and my role in many ways, was to bring a sort of an instinctive quality to the concepting and the visual language that might not have been there in a world that was really predominantly male populated, I would say. So there was a sort of a feminine energy that I would bring to the table that complemented and worked very well with what the band were doing. So this is a piece that I designed for after the 9/11 tragedies. U2 were invited to do the Super Bowl that year was one of the very big events that happened in America after 9/11, and U2 played the halftime. So I designed a piece for their performance, and we wanted to make a tribute piece and to the victims of 9/11, both the people who died on the ground and in the buildings and in the airplanes. So we created we talked a lot about the Vietnam memorial that was in Washington and the simplicity of that and how it was a very meaningful memorial to American people. So we wanted to sort of take a digital sort of the imprint of that in a digital language. So we made this very simple acknowledgement of everybody who'd lost their lives. But in a stadium, when you're playing to 80,000 people, there's a kind of a conversation that has to be had about the appropriateness and how it's going to feel and how it's going to look. So we made a very delicate piece on fabric that when the fabric fell away, basically the names drifted off. And it was a very powerful piece in a large space. So these are the kinds of creative conversations we would have. And then I directed, and I was one of the producers on a film that we made. We ventured into 3D technology. It was very early on in the days of 3D technology, and at the time we had really no idea that this technology was really at the forefront of what was happening. We were asked to get involved, we jumped in. We already sort of knew the three-dimensional space from the live show, but we had no idea that this film was going to, which I'm going to show a clip of right now, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. This is just the trailer. So we weren't really aware at the time, but this film was actually going to greenlight a whole lot of projects that were happening in Hollywood or were about to happen. Because of the quality of the three-dimensional experience. So, and also what's transpired out of this experience is that, oops, let me just go to the next, is that we developed a lot of visual effects and the use of visual effects and the technology for the three-dimensional space, which, as it turns out, has been very useful also coming into the virtual reality space. So this film is still used. It was called by the New York Times as the first digital film, 3D film, to be made in IMAX that could be called a work of art. So it really did have a great effect on how the technology was changing. We created a system of layering for the space that's also a part of the language in the VR space. So it was a great opportunity to work with this new technology. And now I'm just going to move on from the work with U2 and talk a little bit about a VR project that we've just started working on. It's a project about New York City, and this is an example. I want to show you an example of my working process. So this would be some of my research material and how I gather my materials. And then this is a drawing from sort of coming from the studio space, where I would put together some ideas, and then I would deliver those ideas to my designer. My designer will then take the concepts and really work out this journey that I am trying to translate and will be translating into the VR space. And then this is just some of the language that I wanted to show you for that. Now, I've been really thinking about what can I really contribute to this conversation today, because I'm following such incredible speakers. I can't get over, like, I want to collaborate with absolutely everybody. And one of the things is this conversation about collaboration. So I feel that the working really in a man's world, which I have been working in, I've never experienced a situation. I mean, of course, I've run into situations where people would rather, the artist wasn't involved and the budget's too much, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It would be much easier if we just, downloaded something from the internet and played it. But the thing that I feel has allowed me to go into these places and make some fairly, I mean, it's not making the heart muscle valve piece that's incredible, but it is making other parts of the technical language move forward. And I think what it is, and what I wanted to do right now is sort of really try and speak to this thing that I put a lot of focus and energy on my instincts. So as much as I love the technology and as much as I see where it can go, my source of communication and success with my delivery is based on my instincts. So I would say, and I will say especially to the women out there, part of being able to walk into these spaces and be able to collaborate and deliver is that I have definitely got a fine-tuned instinct that I have worked to fine-tune. And also I'm very aware of my energy levels. And what I mean by energy levels is we talk about, you know, the cosmos and the energy that's out there, and science talks about energy, and technology talks about energy, and, you know, the clean environment, it's about energy. So there's a lot of talk about energy, but I'm not sure we talk to ourselves enough about our own energy. And how when we walk into a room, when I'm in a situation where there's a lot of money at stake for a project, the budget for U2-3D was 17 million, and I'm in a room and I'm trying to persuade people that this is a great idea, I have to be really sure that I am correct. So, and when I mean, obviously I don't know what the results are going to be. So I'm really in tune with that. And I will say that if I'm in a space, and I've been there before, where I've talked myself into that energy, or I've talked myself into my inspiration, or not my inspiration, but my instinct, I have failed. And, you know, not very glorious moments. I'm not going to talk about them here, but believe me, they have happened. So I would say that when you find yourself in the room and your brain is going, oh no, I'm not sure, you know, there's all these important people and I only need this and blah, 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 that really to be able to learn how to close off that conversation and push forward on this, on what you can bring. Because when you walk into a room, your energy and your instinct has already had a conversation with the 4, 5, or 6 people who are in front of you. All of that conversation has already happened before you get to hello, shake the hand, etc. So if you are strong in those areas, and they are areas that can be built up, you can walk in from a strong position to get what you want. And just in closing, I'm just going to say very quickly to my sisters, I'm going to talk about the word money. Money, 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 money. Okay, so I want to just, if you can write down, put down, think about whatever, these 2 words, how much, please, please do. It took me a very long time to learn that when I work on projects, and I wish I had learned it earlier, and I wish somebody had mentioned this to me a really long time ago. It is a good word. It gives you the power to make the best choices and to work with the best people, which in turn will strengthen your instincts and will fuel your energy. So even though I've kind of gone from a huge sort of big thing into a very small thing that sits here, do not forget this. In the conversations we're having about technology and about the future and about where we're going, this still outweighs many of those things that we're talking about. So fine-tune it, strengthen it up, and ask for what you think you deserve. Okay, thank you very much.